Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another Pokemon Movesets video. Today's video is going to be all about Solrock, so let's get started by taking a look at this Pokemon's typing, ability, and stats. So to start things off, Solrock is a Rock Psychic type Pokemon introduced into Generation 3 that only has access to one ability, which is that of Levitate, which gives this Pokemon an immunity to ground type moves. But as for its stats, this Pokemon defensively possesses a base 90 HP, 85 defense, and 65 special defense, allowing it to be pretty physically tanky, especially due to the fact that this Pokemon does have access to the move Will-O-Wisp, which can burn opposing physical attackers, and thus allow it to take physical hits from them even better. Offensively though, it possesses a base 95 physical attack, which is very good for doing some solid physical damage, a fairly low base 55 special attack, and an okay base 70 speed stat, which puts it kind of in the average tier of speeds, so it's not going to be super fast, but it also won't be super slow at the same time. And with all of this taken into account, this Pokemon currently finds itself in the PU tier. So with that, let's take a look at the first moveset that I have for you in this video. So for this first moveset, we're going to be using Solrock as a defensive lead. So we're going to start by giving it either an Impish nature to increase its physical defense but lower its special attack, or a Careful nature to increase its special defense but lower its special attack. And then going with the EV spread of 252 HP to max out our HP stat, putting 252 into its defense or its special defense, depending on, again, if you want to run this physically defensive or especially defensive, and then putting the remainder 4 EVs into its speed stat to make it just 1 point faster. And for the item, choosing between either leftovers for the added recovery at the end of every turn, or Rocky Helmet to make it so that whenever your opponent damages you with a contact move, they will also take a bit of damage in the process. But being a defensive lead, this set is going to start off by running Stealth Rock to allow this Pokemon to set up hazards on our opponent's side of the field to make it so that they will take damage every single time they switch in. And then we're also going to be running Will-O-Wisp on the set for a bit more utility and being able to burn opponents, making it so that potential physical attackers will be significantly crippled in the amount of damage they can do, but also making it so that your opponent will take a little bit of residual damage at the end of every turn as well, which is always really great. As for your third slot though, Stone Edge or Zen Headbutt is going to be your main stab rock or psychic type attack, and then for your last move slot, going either more offensive by also running Zen Headbutt in combination with Stone Edge to give you some dual stab coverage, or running a more defensive option in Morning Sun or Pain Split, which will be useful for allowing this Pokemon to have some pretty reliable recovery against its opponents to allow it to last a bit longer in battle. Keeping in mind though that Morning Sun is only a move that you will have access to if you're able to transfer it over from the Dream World in Black and White, I believe is how you get that. Otherwise, if you're using this on Pokemon Showdown, just go ahead and click on Morning Sun because it doesn't conflict with any of the other attacks we're running on the set. But if you don't have access to either of those things, again, Pain Split is the next best option in terms of recovery. As for this next moveset, we're going to be running Solrock in a more team supportive way by running it as a dual screener. So we're going to start this one off by giving it a Careful nature to increase its special defense but lower its special attack, and going with an EV spread this time of 252 HP EVs, 88 defense, and 168 special defense EVs to give it some really well-rounded mixed bulk overall. And since this is a dual screen set, our item of choice is going to be the Light Clay item to allow this Pokemon to extend the turns of the screens that it's going to be setting up from 5 to 8, which are the first two moves on the set in the form of Light Screen to increase your team's ability to take special hits, and Reflect to increase your team's ability to take physical hits. In addition to this, we're also going to be running Stealth Rock on the set to again give it that great utility in being able to set up hazards on our opponent's side of the field. But for the last move slot, we can either run it with an attacking move in the form of Stone Edge or Zen Headbutt to be a more offensive option, or just run Morning Sun on the set to allow this Pokemon to have a reliable recovery move to pretty much just use it as a dual screener and hazard setter for your team that can just survive for a very long time and not have to worry about damaging its opponents, provided that you have the proper team support. Now moving on to some of the more offensive sets of this video, we're going to start this one off by giving Solrock a Jolly Nature to increase its speed but lower its special attack, and going with an EV spread of 252 attack, 4 special defense, and 252 speed EVs to maximize its physical attack and its speed stats. And for the item on the set, since we're going to be running this Pokemon Choiced, we're either going to go with a Choice Scarf to increase its speed while locking it into a move, or a Choice Band to increase its physical attack while locking it into a move. And both of these options give this Pokemon some added power and utility right off the bat by either making this Pokemon faster than things it normally would be, or more powerful than it normally would be without any additional stat boosts that it could acquire. But for the moves on the set, the first two that we're going to be going with are going to be our Stab Rock type move in the form of Stone Edge and our Stab Psychic type move in the form of Zen Headbutt. Then, for the other two attacks, we are lucky enough to have access to both Earthquake and Flare Blitz, which allows the Pokemon to have some insane type coverage with its moves on this particular set, and allow it to hit many things either for really solid and powerful neutral damage, or for some very good super effective damage against a variety of opponents that this Pokemon can be matched up against. As for this next moveset, we're going to be running Solrock as a boosting sweeper. So we're going to start this one off by giving it either a Jolly Nature to increase its speed but lower its special attack, or an Adamant Nature to increase its physical attack but lower its special attack, and going with an EV spread again of 252 physical attack EVs, 4 special defense EVs, and 252 speed EVs to max out its physical attack and speed stats. But for the item on this set, we're either going to go with a Life Orb to increase the damage of all of our attacks at the cost of losing 10% of our health every time we damage an opponent, or a Z Crystal to correspond to one of the types of attacks on the set to give you a super powerful move of that type for a one-time use. But for the moves, since this is a boosting set, the first thing that we're going to be going with is going to be Rock Polish to give Solrock a reliable way to boost its speed stat by 2 stages and thus make it significantly more threatening on the battlefield, as it will now be outspeeding many more things that it would normally be able to, even with the Choice Scarf. But for the attacking options, again, Stone Edge and Zen Headbutt are our main stab, rock, and psychic type moves. And then for the last move slot, this time we have to choose between either Earthquake or Flare Blitz, depending on the type coverage you think you're going to most need, depending again on the tier you're using this Pokemon in, or whatever you are going to be most commonly matched up against when trying to sweep with Solrock. Up next, for a more unique offensive set, we're actually going to be running Solrock Specially Defensive, even though its special attack isn't that great, because it actually has some really great coverage when being used as a special attacker, which can take a lot of opponents by surprise and allow this Pokemon to actually match up really well against a lot of the counters to its physical sets. So for this particular one, we're going to start by giving it a Timid Nature to boost its speed but lower its physical attack, and then this time going with an EV spread of 252 special attack, 4 special defense, and 252 speed EVs to max out its special attack and speed stats. And for the item on the set, we're either going to go with Furium Z to be used in combination with one of the fire moves on the set, either Sunny Day to boost your speed while you set up the sun, or Fire Blast to obviously give you a super powerful fire type move. We can also go with Psychium Z to allow this Pokemon to have a super powerful psychic type move to use, a Life Orb like before to boost the damage of all of your attacks at the cost of losing 10% of your health every time you damage your opponent, or a Heat Rock to allow you to extend the turns of Sun on the battlefield from 5 to 8, because that is the first move that we're going to be going with on the set to really allow this specially offensive set to function. Because with Sunny Day up on the battlefield, we're not only going to be able to be increasing the power of fire type moves and also reduce the damage of water type attacks that this Pokemon is weak to, but it will also give us access to a no charge Solar Beam, which is a really great option that this Pokemon has access to that doesn't get seen too often. So between Fire Blast and Solar Beam, you have a really great type coverage in and of itself, both moves functioning incredibly well under Sun. And then for the last attack on the set, we're going to run a Stab Psychic type special attack in the form of either Psychic or Psyshock, one hitting your opponent's special defense, whereas the other hits your opponent's physical defense, or going with Morning Sun as an option on the set as well, which works really well again in combination with the Sun, because it actually recovers even more HP while Sun is up on the battlefield. So this set has a lot of uses in that it obviously can allow this Pokemon to function well as a special attacker. It can also allow this Pokemon to be a great Sun support Pokemon for a team based around Sun, because why wouldn't you use Sun on a Pokemon that looks like the Sun? But it can also just be a really great way of taking opponents by surprise, as mentioned before, because most people won't expect a special offensive set for Solrock, and this set is very, very powerful despite this Pokemon having such a fairly low base 55 special attack stat. Finally, for the last moveset of this video, we're going to be using Solrock in a more defensive boosting way to stall out its opponents. So we're going to start this one off by giving it a Careful Nature to increase its special defense but lower its special attack, and going with an EV spread this time of 252 HP EVs, 88 defense EVs, and 168 special defense EVs to give this Pokemon some really great mixed bulk all around, like on the previous dual screening set. But for the item on this one, we're going to be going with Leftovers to allow this Pokemon to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn. But for the first move, we're going to be going with Cosmic Power, which is an excellent move that allows this Pokemon to boost its physical defense and its special defense simultaneously up to a maximum of 6 times, thus turning Solrock into a ridiculously tanky Pokemon. Then we're going to be running one attack on this set, which is going to be either Zen Headbutt or Earthquake, specifically because on this set we're going to be trying to Toxic Stall opponents through our incredibly high boosted defenses as a result of Cosmic Power. So obviously Toxic will increase in damage at the end of every turn the longer your opponent stays in, and the only Pokemon that you can't Toxic happen to be Poison types and Steel-type Pokemon, both of which can be covered by either Zen Headbutt for a super effective option against those Poison types, but not a great option against Steel types, or Earthquake if you want a non-stab option that can hit both of those types of Pokemon super effectively. But for the last move on the set, we're either going to run Rest to allow this Pokemon to recover all of its HP and get rid of any negative statuses it may have been inflicted with, and then Wake Up and continue to boost further and Toxic Stall things further, or go with Morning Sun, which does have the weakness in being able to be Toxic Stalled yourself, unfortunately, since you have no way of removing status, but it is a little bit of a better recovery option since you aren't being put to sleep for 2 turns. But anyways, everybody, that is it for this video on Solrock, so I hope you enjoyed this particular one. I had a lot of fun making movesets for this Pokemon because I think it is very, very unique. But as always, take care, goodbye, and I will see you all next time.